Hi there, welcome to the very first We Are West Grand talk show. My guest today, the one and only Kristin Rath.
Hey guys.
So today what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening in Kristin's classroom, and also just give you a chance to get to know Kristin a little bit better. So Kristin, if you would, just maybe quickly tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and what you teach, coach, that kind of stuff.
All right. So as Dr. Pippert said, my name is Kristin Rath. I'm a third-year teacher here at West Grand Middle School. I primarily teach 6th grade math and science. I've got a couple different electives this year, a banking and finance class, a middle school 101, and I teach an 8th grade elective called community conservation. I coach lots of different things. I do middle school cross country in the fall, middle school track in the spring, focusing on hurdles and high jump, and I'm also the head spirit coach, which includes cheer and dance and goes from beginning of the school year till the end of basketball season. So pretty busy all year round.
So you don't have a lot of free time is what you're saying?
Not a whole lot.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You do a lot for our kids here in West Grand. So one of the things I wanted to talk today about, Kristin, is recently your 6th graders had a really cool experience. Tell us a little bit about the escape room math and maybe what inspired you to do something just so interesting and unique.
So last week in my classroom we did what's called an escape room. And there are escape room buildings that you can go to when you get locked in. You have to solve these little puzzles to get out. And that concept has been taken to the classroom. I participated in one a few weekends ago. We went to a big in-service called CoLab, which is put on by the Northwest BOCES, and all teachers from the schools in the surrounding area go. And I went to a session about games in the classroom, which is put on by the librarian at Steamboat Springs High School. And she had set up a escape room for us that was centered on introducing the topic of Banned Book Week. And teachers, we were put into teams, we solved the locks, we got all them off the boxes, and then had to go do another activity, and then do a final question, and it was a really intense, 25 minutes or something at the end of her session, and it was a ton of fun. And she gave us lots of resources on how to bring it to our classrooms. And since I had such a great time doing that, I wanted to introduce it to my students. We were reaching the end of a unit, like our beginning of the year stuff, and so I found a bunch of different resources about the specific math topics we've been covering, a lot of free stuff off of Teachers Pay Teachers to switch it up from our normal math curriculum, and made a series of codes for them, spread them around the room, introduced the topic, and I was like, all right guys, you got the rest of the class period into break you out of the classroom. They took it and went with it. They could fly solo, they could work in dedicated partners, or just work with whoever was at that station. If they thought one was too difficult, they would leave and then come back to it. They asked questions when they needed them, and they were deep, meaningful questions, not just how do we do this, but what is this exact sentence talking about? Since it was different than what we'd normally done, they used lots of their close reading skills to really figure out what was going on, and really challenge themselves with it.
So how was it different for you as the teacher? I mean, this is quite a bit different than you standing in front of the class and walking through, these 5 problems, or this is, this particular theorem, or whatever the case may be. I mean, this is a different role for you as a teacher. So while I know you've dived really well into project-based learning and you're good at letting go of control, what was this experience like for you as a teacher?
It was a lot of prep work for me beforehand. I made sure I went through and did all the problems that I was asking them to do, to see where they might struggle, to make sure I figured out what code would work well for this. So it's a lot of prep work for the teacher ahead of time, but in the moment, you're set free. You can wander, you look at where hands are raised or where there's questioning faces, and you really are the facilitator going on. And I told them if you ask me what the answer is, do you think I'm going to tell you right now? And they're like, oh, no. So they knew right away that that wasn't going to fly, and that I would do what I could to help lead them through this process. So really the true facilitator thing. They had all the tools, they had all the knowledge, and I would just point them in the right direction when they needed it.
So what do you think the experience looked like from the perspective of the student? I mean, it sounds like they were really engaged, but I'm curious, what did you see in terms of learning from your kids?
So they came in and they knew things were a little different. I had some things set up already when they came in. What's going on? And so they had to be really flexible that day and really like self-motivated to go from activity to activity and see, oh, there's a big group there, so I can't go there. I'm going to go to this other activity. So there's a lot of like learning on the fly and how to self-direct for them, since like you said, the usual thing is, okay, we're going to do these example problems, now try this one on your own, all right, we're going to go over it. It's very structured, and while structure is a really good thing in a classroom, they can really thrive when they're set free to do their own thing. So from them was a little weird at the very beginning, a little bit of like, how do I do this, what's going on? And once they realized, I just gotta calm down and read the directions and ask maybe my peers what they have been doing to help themselves, it goes a lot smoothly. And they like adapted really fast.
That's great. It sounds like it was a lot of fun. It was unfortunate I wasn't able to be here. I would have loved to have come in and seen this. So I'm glad I get a chance to talk to you about it. So not only with the escape room stuff, but I know you've been very active with project-based learning. And you've been one who's been willing to kind of take some steps out there and experiment a little bit similar to the escape room. So what have you seen as challenges and successes for your students and for yourself as a teacher in project-based learning?
I think a big challenge right away is when we first kind of dive into project-based learning, you see like the videos, read the articles about and from these teachers who've been doing it a while, and it like just goes off flawlessly and they're really self-directed, doing all of it themselves, and that's not like logical to think you're going to do it right away in your very first one. So the challenge is to figure out how can I like scaffold my students to help them through this process to really make them do more of the work. And it's a struggle, like how free can I set them and how many parameters do we need to give, and like knowing your age group, like my middle schoolers need a little bit more guidance than like a high schooler, even on like a first time PBL project. Just figuring out what I should give them and where I need to push them more, just finding those like right limits on how much I can give them and how much they can just do on their own is probably the biggest one for me. Since, as you said, I'm a little more used to just letting my kids have lots of freedom, giving them lots of choices anyway, but figuring out how far in the project I need to do that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Some successes with it, probably just the engagement piece. They were all like very into their codes. Today when we had a work day for our project, they were all like with their groups or with like their solo self, and like they were very into it. And just giving them that choice that like here's our overall thing with kind of an end goal there, but you can do what you need to do to get there. And another challenge with that is I have what I think a good project ending looks like, and I can't say that to them because they're like, oh well, that's what she wants, that's what I'm going to give her. But that's not really engaging with their creative self and giving them what they want to do. With my sixth graders right now, like I've got a couple things that I want from them. We made our own like rubric kind of with what they think we need out of this project. So at that standpoint, the two classes are different themselves. And then each individual group is coming at it from all sorts of different directions that I never would have like gone for. And so that's by me being challenged to not say my end goal, like that's a success with them tapping into their creativity and bringing me something totally different.
Well, that's a really great example of how voice and choice really comes out in project-based learning. And there's a lot of risk involved, and you have to be comfortable with that, and you have to just kind of trust this may not go exactly where I think it should go, but I really want to trust my kids, and it's amazing what some of the things that our kids actually will come up with. So.
Yeah, and just a simple like redirection, like how is what you're doing right now impacting our driving question? And they're like, oh, is it, or am I not? Like, how do I move that around? So you don't need to be telling them exactly what to do at all times, but like the little prodding questions can really help direct them on one way or have them do a 180 and go backwards. Just the little things you're doing as that facilitator helps them out.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being my guest on the very first We Are West Grand talk show. Look for more episodes in the future, and we are West Grand.
We are West Grand.